Thank you, Alice. I'm David. I'm an alcoholic. And Alice had asked me about 2 months ago, and I tried to avoid it, like I didn't hear. But she was wanting me to pick a topic, and it took her until about 2 weeks ago to pick a topic. So because there's so much to think about with the 11th step, the St. Francis prayer and everything. And I finally said, "Thy will be done," okay? And that day I went out and driving like a bat out of hell, I got a speeding ticket for "Thy will be done." And that really taught me that I really needed to listen more than I need to be a maniac, like most of the people around here I see. I'm not really comfortable speaking. I don't really feel I can carry an effective message. I humbly try, and I don't really speak for AA or anything like that. And I did uh, have a sponsor like a guy named Joe Phelan, a guy named Don Pritz, and ran with those maniacs themselves to absorb a lot of what I really wanted to know. And I'll tell you a little story about Don. Don was coming to New York and doing a workshop with us, and we had made flyers and all that. And this was in the old days, about 20 or 30 years ago. So, and Don said to my friend who picked him up at the airport, "Bob, can I get a ride to GSO? I haven't seen the new office since it moved up to Harlem." And so Bob took him up to Harlem, and Don was walking there, and it was around closing time, so most of the people weren't there. And on all the desks, saw this big sign saying, "Don Pritz, Aurora, Colorado, coming to Westchester County, blah, blah, blah." And he commented that, he doesn't really, he wasn't very comfortable with that. He wished it could be some guy coming through town uh, with a message. And I guess I sort of reflect on, I'm that guy, some guy walking through town. I'm just another guy in AA. And when I came to AA, I came in because I've been thrown out of my house because my wife had found out about an affair I had had. And I came into AA as the out of fear of father-in-law. I was married to an Italian girl, and she was uh, Catholic, and her husband was her father was from the Bronx, and was probably connected. And I was really, if he had caught up with me, he would have killed me. And that's what I thought of God back then. If he caught up, he hurt me. So I called my brother, who was sober a year and a half or two in AA, and I felt sorry for the guy. He was put out to pasture with you folk and couldn't have fun anymore. And uh, just that was my impression of AA. And so I called John up because I had done a lot of drinking with him, and called him up and said, "Hey, I think I need psychiatric help." And I just got caught having an affair, and I really, really felt bad. And I've been sober ever since. So that spiritual experience really talks to me more about, I mean, one day I was not drinking, the next day one day was drinking, the next day I was not drinking. So I think that this thing worked in my life in a walking day by day with a higher power. And anyhow, um, he said, "You might need psychiatric help, but why don't we find?" And he orchestrated a air flight up from Atlanta to New York to um, go into a place called Second Chance. And so I went into Second Chance, and I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I thought I was maybe a heavy drinker. I could stop anytime. That was my delusional thinking. But so Scotty, who introduced me to AA, was one of those giants that Hollis talks about, a man who really carried the message effectively to me and helped me realize. And he said, you know, if Dave, you don't really need to be here if you don't want to be here. And I really had nowhere else to go. And I said, you know, I don't think I'm an alcoholic, you know. And he goes, well, why don't we can only find out if you're an alcoholic by you're not drinking. And why don't we, he introduced me to AA as the rubber ducky syndrome. And he said, why don't we put the booze aside like the rubber ducky and see how you react without the booze. And if you're an alcoholic, you're going to have a little temper tantrum and you're going to want your little rubber ducky real bad. And he emphasized that just because Davy Russell has a drinking poo problem does not mean the world was going to change. And I was going to have to learn how to live in a world that could care if I was an alcoholic or not, or the bars weren't going to close and people weren't going to change. And it was not going to be in sobriety the way I wanted it. Everybody on pins and needles and cooperating with me, and I had to come to realize that that wasn't in the works. So I came to he explained this phenomenon of craving, and that really made me understand the fact that when I took a drink, when my wife had rationed me a 6-pack of beer, and uh, the when the 6-pack of beer was finished, I whatever got between me and the next drink had to be moved. And I called her some names. I manipulated her. I had to go out for cigarettes. I made up some rationalization. But at this night, I had an argument with her and walked out to the bar and took a drink. And I came to realize that phenomena craving was something that I had no control about. So I could quickly identify with that phenomenon of craving, and he says, well, if I did a lot of drugs also, but he got me to realize, we can only, he emphasized this pamphlet, the more about alcoholism, explaining if I needed help, he was going to direct me towards the help I needed, and if I wasn't an alcoholic, I could go to NA. But if I was an alcoholic, and I came to identify it as an alcoholic, um, I could find a home, as our friend Calvin sort of shared, welcome home. And so I really didn't understand the mental obsession until I left the rehab. And my observation that day was I was leaving, and there was no way I could stay sober on my own. And I prayed to a God that I didn't believe in, but God, if you are there, please help me stay sober just for the day. And within a nanosecond, my stinking drinking came back. Who's going to know what's one drink? Maybe you jumped the gun. And so I was quick to realize that mental obsession could come back in any moment, and I had no defense over that. On the way to the pizza parlor to get a beer, I went to the hardware store and I realized there were 4 kids sitting on the curb passing a bottle, and this was up in Westchester County. It was not down in New York, the Bowery, passing a bottle between the 4 of them. And I looked at that, and maybe God sort of helped me see that experience and say, if I take a drink, I'd be lucky to be sitting on a curb passing a bottle with 4 buddies. But I have no idea where this is going to take me. And I white knuckled it and got to a meeting that night. And so started my journey in AA, and I was warned about the message of it. I love the story about the game Phone. I whisper something in Alice's ear, and she whispers in Allie's ear, and then Calvin's ear, and by the time it gets back to me, it's a totally different message. So I was very concerned about I wanted to hear a good messenger because Scotty was a great messenger. And so my at 45 days sober, my wife invited me back home. And I said, my God, this AA shit works, man. You know, you're invited back home. And so my then sponsor said, now you go down to Atlanta and you do 90 meetings in 90 days because you don't know anybody down there. You need to make a connection with a lot of people. You get a sponsor. You don't have to marry the sponsor. You can get rid of the sponsor, if something happens better. And so I got a guy named Jack And I was observing many times his message was don't drink and go to meetings, and I knew that from about 2 weeks in. I knew how to make coffee and would go show up early and do all that type of stuff, but I was restless, irritable, discontent. And finally, I came to realize it was my life on that line, and I recognized this guy named Joe Phelan, who was 33 years sober. His sponsor was Dr. Bob, and I don't think could have been too diluted by the time it got to me. So I asked Joe to be my sponsor, and Joe taught me a whole lot about service work. He was a delegate and a trustee. Every time he came up to New York, he'd invite me to the conference dinner, and I'd have a steak and enjoy fellowship with some of the giants that I have been exposed to, and those people. I think if anything, my talk will be more about them, and my loving them rather than me being a demonstration more than they. Because Joe Phelan, when I was down there, he sort of said, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "I know what you're going to do. You're going to go to an area assembly. Have you ever been to an area assembly?" And I said, "No, no, no." And he said, "You're going to go with 2 or 3 people, and you go there and you find out what an area assembly is." And I came to realize there's a whole new area of AA that I had no clue about. And it was an election, and it was amazing. And so um, Joe was a great example to me. My home group uh, des- decided that they didn't like a GSR, and they didn't want a GSR. I was the alternate GSR, then I became a GSR. And this old timer said, that's damn politics. I don't want to hear that crap. So the message that we try and transmit to the group gets lost in the communication, I came to find out. And so finally I became a DCM, and this this area that I lived in was Bill Wilson's area of Bedford Hills, New York, and it had become 5 groups sitting around talking about no one wants to be a GSR, and we talked about traditions, and we read a tradition a month, and I said, I came to learn from Joe that there was more to this district than we were thinking of. I said, from now on, we're not going to read the tradition. We're going to pick committees. And the first guy said, I don't. I said, you're the chairperson. I said, hey, I don't know what I said. We're allowed to learn. So we're about 50 miles from New York City, and so we can get people to help us understand what committees are all about. And we had some people come up and talk to us from the office, and we had a guy named David Aronofsky come and talk about the traditions, and we had some giants. And then all of a sudden, uh, I'm trying to shorten this up. All of a sudden, I went to the Montreal Convention in '85, and uh, we heard a guy named Joe McQuaney talk. And I said, "That's the guy I have on tape." And a trustee friend of mine said we booked him in New York to not come in 1988. Would you like to be the committee? I was the committee. I drove the committee because our district made it. Uh, we were having big book meetings, but we weren't touching anything that they were talking about at all. And it's wonderful that a lot of the big book uh, meetings are developed through that and all that inspiration. So what we created from 5 groups was 59 groups actively participating, and we were just West District, whatever. I don't remember back then, but the district, and we were not like Connecticut. We were ourselves, and we had to come to realize we had to grow because we were ourselves. And like any group is autonomous, it needs to grow along spiritual lines. we developed and moved on to get it to have that um, evolution. Then I was introduced to a guy named Joe Hawk, and Joe was an amazing person, and he was talking about a guy named Don Pritz who was talking up in Rhode Island. So I went up with my maniac friends. We were about 8 or 9 of us to see what Don was going to talk about. And Don was talking from a level up here. And I said, "How the F do you get up there, man?" And he talked about the maintenance steps and uh, and talked about redoing the steps on a yearly basis. And I was brought up in New York where everybody did the maintenance steps. You only did the first 9 steps once, and you lived in maintenance steps 10, 11, 12. And Don turned to me and said, "Do you know that from your own experience, or were you sold on that?" And I didn't have an answer for him. I said, I've never done the steps again, so I'll do them again, and I'll tell if you're right or they're wrong. Nothing wrong in doing it. So I found a guinea pig, a friend of mine, Bob Forbes, who was going to go listen to my steps. And uh, so we set up an appointment every Tuesday, and he was going to listen to my first or second, or my 12-step experiences. And we shared that first day, and I came to realize that I had rushed through the steps, and I had never realized that this was a progressive disease. And Bob sort of said, "Hey, I want to do these steps again." I said, "No, you're supposed to listen to me." And we came to on a conclusion that he and I were both going to work the steps. We're going to swap steps experiences throughout, and we were just having an amazing experience. And so, you know, Don's message truly was that many of us, like Don Coy talks about seasons of sobriety, and every year you need to have a compass to navigate through the year ahead. You've been changed from that time in the past, and yesterday's gone, and you need to move forward. And about 2 or 3 times in inventory, I came to realize my best friend that I was in a car accident when I was 19, who died in the accident. We had a head-on collision, and he was decapitated, and I was hemorrhaging around heart and lung, ruptured bladder, broken pelvis, and that didn't even stop me from drinking. That's how powerful this disease truly is, because my brain really did not act off of that serious condition. His name popped up in my inventory and said, I have no idea how to get in touch with him. His mother called me on the anniversary of his accident and would be being drunk, said, "I'm so sorry," and she'd give me all that spiel. And his father, I had no idea what he had tried to help. He had tried to help me with business, and I had no way of getting in touch with him. And I said, I came upon this Rolodex, and it had his sister's uh, name and phone number from Vermont. And her reason for leaving Vermont, going up to Vermont, was to avoid that ghost town that her brother had died in. And so I said, she can't live there anymore. So it had been 25 years, and I called that number, and she answered. And what do you say to her? Because, my inventory was that I tried to hit on her because I used uh, the injury to my advantage and all that type of stuff. So I had to be very delicate how I approach this. And um, uh, I explained to her why I was a member of AA, and I was really had no opportunity to say goodbye to Billy, and she shared with me briefly what she had gone through, and she told me where he was buried. And so the next day I went to his gravesite, and I bawled like a little baby because he was my best friend, and I just waited for God's direction of what I can do, what I could share at that moment. And I recognized that his car accident was on 4/28, and my sobriety date is 8/24. And so I thought, my God, I just sort of listened to that whole reality, and I sort of came across with this idea that, he was saying, Dave, you've had 25 years of life. What are you doing with it? And I really it was a wake-up call, and I followed his direction of what was I going to do with my life, and I really I've tried to live this 45 years of sobriety, of following God's guidance, thy will be done. And humorously, a friend of mine sent me the reading of the third step, talking about his arrangements would only stay put if only people would do as he wished. The show would be great. Everybody, including himself, could be pleased. Life would be wonderful. And that's about me trying to direct my life. But if I come to realize, if I uh, if I'm willing to arrange life like he would have, if people would do as God wishes, uh, we have a whole another reality that there truly is. And my concept is that Don Pritz would talk about, we have many ways of prayer and meditation and meditating and all that type of stuff. People can do, you know, me Buddhist type meditation and all that. There's like 30 or 40 different ideas that I get. But Don sort of said, it's most important. It's not important that you get on your knees, but it's important how you get up from your knees. And the 11th step really answers the message of the 12th step, the joy of living, of bringing a harmonious action to people and living and loving people. My first thought when Alice had asked me to talk was to talk about end hate, which is St. Francis' prayer, because that's really been weighing on my heart a lot about how much anger and hate there is in this world, and how we might be able to work on treating that effectively. But, thy will be done was my answer. And I think that's about my 25 minutes or 45 minutes, if that. I really appreciate you listening to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, David, for a beautiful message. We'll now open the meeting for Q&A. Please note that this meeting, we encourage asking questions rather than only comments. If you are moved to make a comment, please be mindful of the time and keep it brief.
So one question is, can you please share your sobriety date? And the other question is, can you please talk about how your creative side, including your tie, ties into your recovery?
My sobriety date is August 23rd of 79. That's the date of my last drink, and the date of my first day of sobriety is August 24th. It's the reverse of April 28th, whatever. I'm a graphic artist by trade, and I worked for the Grapevine for a little while, and have a great passion for AA. And in my retirement, I had a stroke about 11 years ago on my birthday, June 17th, 1952 is my birthday. So I'm 72 years old, and happy rebirthday. Thank you, God. But I came to realize the trouble was my own making, because I was not taking good care of myself, physically or mentally, and I brought it upon myself. So I could not blame anybody else, but I really had to rely on a higher power to get well. And I've walked through a lot of struggle, and I'm retired, and I'd love to do things for AA. And so I have a little store where I sell anniversary cards or this and that and wonderful things like that. And those help me to meditate too, because I'm immersed with the thoughts of AA and how you can carry the message and the words and this and that. And so I hope that answers the question. If not, my phone number's on my talk. So if anybody wants to talk to me a little more in detail, please call me. I won't answer. I mean, go ahead. Can't hear you, Alice.
Thank you, David. Generous of you to put your number out there like that. Cynthia, you please come in.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sandy. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you, Alice and the team, for bringing such a great meeting tonight. And thank you so much for sharing. I forgot your name so quickly, but I enjoyed your share, and it was while I was listening to you, it seems as though service really pulled you into um, to recovery. And I would ask you if some newcomers is on here, and including me. Sometimes I feel like a newcomer. How would you, how would you, get me to get involved in service and tell a newcomer how important service is? And sometimes, like when we come in here, we don't do the program right away, and so we need to stay connected to AA some kind of way. And how, when you was doing service, how would you explain to the newcomer that your sobriety your service into AA put you closer to God?
Thank you.
Yes, as I shared, Scotty was a great giant in my life, and I went to Scotty because I didn't believe in God, and everybody likes credit for what they are transmitting. I said, Scotty, thank you for saving my life. And Scotty said, I didn't save it. All we want you to do is get well and to pass it on. And that really helped me realize I needed to get well, because this thing of AA is fragile. It's one alcoholic working with another. And and the effective message that he transmits, rather than just don't drink, go to meetings, be cool, all that crap, chucking and jiving and really having nothing inside, no real passion for this program. And I think Bill Wilson devoted his life to this program. And I met Lois, and the funny thing was, Billy Gargliano, who I had the car accident with, lived on Roosevelt Drive, and Bill Wilson lived on Oak Drive, and you could walk through the woods from one house to the other. And my message from that was, yet so close, but yet so far. The message can be that close, but you're missing the connection. And so we have a responsibility to communicate this program to other people and take it seriously, as if it's a matter of life and death. And we love you to death, but thank you.
Thank you. Marissa, hi, beautiful. Come on in.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa Main. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much, David, for your message tonight. My question is about your brother. You shared that you called him when you were wanting to get sober, and I was just curious how your program and his changed or affected your relationship as siblings.
My brother is 48 years sober. I'm 45 years sober. My younger brother came in, he only has a measly 35 years of sobriety. And when he came in, we decided he wasn't going to join our group. He was going to have his own experience. So in Norwalk, Connecticut, he got involved with a group, a very tough love group. And so we have 100 and some odd years between the three of us. And we can talk about almost everything. And it's wonderful to have people in your corner. And I went to my brother when I had a stroke. He came down and he was like an angel. And he still is. And most of these people that I have helping me in my life are really that. I come to realize that, the people that really love you and care for you are wonderful people, because there are a lot of hate and there's a lot of manipulation. I got too busy. I'm more important than you. There's all that ego, ego, ego. Joe Phelan talked about that I only have 3 problems. My 3 problems are ego, ego, and ego. And I came to realize, my brother is able to talk to me lovingly but constructively, and we all try and work with each other. Anyhow, I hope that helps.
Thank you. How beautiful. Dina, my friend, please come in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dina T, alcoholic, and thank you so much, everybody doing service, and David, so much for your story. When you talked about working with people or and your friend, your sponsee that doesn't want to get it, when you start working with somebody that has 25 years, do you do it differently? Do you have any kind of tips for working with someone new? How do you make that different?
Don had a great message to me. When a newcomer comes, you pray. How can I talk to this person? Because everybody is different, and this person I'm trying to help is a year going to. He lost his license in DUI, so he's been sober for a year, missing something. All he is doing is he has a restless, irritable discontented. His alcoholism directing his life, and so his life can only get so well by white knuckling or by being a dry drunk. And I'm trying to expose to him what this program truly is, and I can only beat him on a little bit. I'm like the doctor who comes to realize you can only help to an extent. You can't make them do it. You can't fix them. You're humbling. We're not God. We can't touch and heal. We can't fix them. So Don had a wonderful ability to make me be willing to do the steps over again and to have a wonderful experience. And those people that are just energized with this program, really cooperating with one another through like Joe Hawk and Mark Houston and all that, and Charlie Parker and Katie are just wonderful people. And I was very uncomfortable with being asked to speak at this meeting because, my God, these people are giants too, and who am I, to stand up to them? But you need to pray about it, because it's not a cookie cutting approach. We don't carry the message to him or her or them one way or another. I was introduced to rubber ducky syndrome, so, that was my idea. He was able to move me by a freaking duck. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm gonna call for hands, but David, I want to put this out to you as a question because you talked about it in your share. There are people in Alcoholics Anonymous who call 10, 11, and 12 maintenance steps. There are other people who are like, oh my God, those are not maintenance steps, those are growth steps. And then there are people, which you talked about, that say, you go through the steps once and then you live in these growth steps 10, 11, 12. And there are other people who are like, every couple years, I just go all the way. I start at one and I go all the way back through. And so you've been here longer than most of us, right? What have you come to understand is underneath those differences? Maintenance versus growth, do them once, do them over and over again.
That's a hard question to answer. Usually there's cliques in AA, and groups can be cliquish, and they get their mind wrapped around one way of doing it. I came down here from New York to South Carolina, and I'm trying to introduce the idea of a home group. They meet once a week, and they're more a meeting than they're a home group, and they're really not doing anything but pontificating about the steps or this and that, or they don't talk about traditions. They don't do anything to help anybody. And they think that that's it, that's the message of AA, because monkey see, monkey do. And I think the emphasis needs to be pointed that you need to have an open mind about this whole thing. You need willingness, open-mindedness, and honesty is the essentials of this program. And your brain is going to move up a stage in your recovery by doing this step process again. And people that are adamant, they have contempt prior to investigation, I think. They think they know, but they don't know, because they think they're carrying a message, but they're really not carrying AA's message. That's my feeling. And if I've caused some resentment, and my name is David Russell, your first name on the first column, and you do the rest,
Always call your sponsor. Yeah. Marilyn, it's so good to see you. Please come on in.
Thank you, Alice. My name is Marilyn. I am alcoholic. And David, I just want to tell you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that lovely delivery, your passion. I could just feel you through the monitor. You started out saying when you were thinking of your topic, and you came up with thy will be done. My goal is to try to do God's will on a daily basis, and I practice that through these steps and 10, 11, 12 maintenance for me. But we had a question at a meeting the other night, and the question was, how do we know when it's God's will? And some people said, oh, when things go smoothly and there's no problems, or some people say, I can feel it when it's, and then someone else says, well, how do we know which is God's will? Because is it God's will that we're having all these problems in the world? Is that God's will? So is it always smooth? Does it always feel good? So what's your take on that? How do we know when it's God's will being done, if you can?
When I came to realize God gave us free will, and most of this world is a God they're misunderstanding, and people, like our barroom bullshit, you talk about wanting to hit on women, you talk alcoholic behavior, you talk about the barroom bull, a lot of that is being transmitted today. Unfortunately, you can't buy into the media. My dad was in advertising, and he was sold a lot of liquor. He worked for Doyle Dane Bernbach and sold Seagram's liquor. I grew up with the Bronfmans, and he had the picture of a woman and a couch and a liquor bottle, and it plays on your emotions, and your frothy emotional appeal themselves seldom suffices. So unfortunately, you have to question everything. I think that through inventory, you're not really going to find your answer from humans. You're not going to it's not a psychiatric therapy at AA. It's a God-directed therapy. And you're going to hear a lot of people comforting you. Easy does it, they use the AA slogans in a therapeutic manner, but I've come to realize it's full of crap, and I call a lot of people that, I don't hate them, I love them, and I can, anyhow, I don't want to get into that. I'll write inventory tonight.
My friend Lana, please come on in. You, me, and laughter.
That
Right?
cracked me up, and then I realized, oh my God, my microphone. You can hear me. David, thank you for your share. And here's my question, because I have an opinion, but we all do, right? As a result of people going through the step work, do you think they are more inclined, if they have the spiritual experience as a result of going through these steps, more inclined to get involved in service in Alcoholics Anonymous? Thank you for letting me share, everyone. Great meeting.
I think God gives Bill a vision. Bill, when he went to Shoemaker, said, you know, I believe that God has taught me what the problem is, what the solution and plan of action is. And I think God sort of inspired me to help other people. He sort of said, you know, your will is to help others. And I think that is a message of AA, although people don't want to see that we have a common problem and a common solution, and we have a common need of carrying the message effectively. And we think we're cool because we know the lingo, we know verses of the book. We had a workshop at our group up in New York, and we went through the book and we turned statements into questions, and we allowed the group to share that experience. So if they had what their insight to that group, truly what the paragraph was truly about, or that word. We had a dictionary. We allowed crosstalk, and we allowed people to talk about what they thought, and so we became more aware of them. This guy, Peter C., he came up to me and asked me if I'd sponsor him. And I just finished going through the steps with Bob, and I sort of said, you know, Peter, I'm sorry, but you know, I think maybe we haven't been able to transmit what we thought we were transmitting to you. So I used a set-aside prayer. God, help me set aside what I think I've been sharing with you and allow me to have a new experience. And that guy woke up like that, you know, all of a sudden he was involved and immersed. So we got to get people more involved than they truly are. And once they get involved and they come to see that this program is really, you know, it can die tomorrow, I think. You know, unfortunately, AA has been 2,200,000 people for the last 25 years or 30 years, but we haven't grown and we haven't been more effective. But I think there's a lot of questions about why that's happening, and I hope that answers.
Thank you, it did. Thank you, David. Thank you for your share.
Calvin, my friend, here we
Thank you,
are.
Alice.
Come on.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Calvin. I'm an alcoholic. And David, thank you. Thank you. And when you talked about the way God touches you, you talked about it in a different way, but I understood it, right? And you're a three-legacy person. And you can tell that when you're a three-legacy person. You know, unity, recovery, and service, because you talked about all three of them things. And I just really like your humility, man. I like your humility. You know, you keep it honest and you keep it straight. And I like that. Because I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe in. I'm no doormat for nobody. So I really understand that. You know, this thing has made me stand on my feet as a man. And I really appreciate you, David. You brought a good, strong message. You know, I felt your spirit. Thank you, Alice, for letting me share.
Thank you.
Anybody who has sex in his last name is wonderful, man.
David, we are out of time. And as we are closing out, would you please tell people what the pamphlet is that you referenced earlier? And then Michelle, back to you.
It's called Problems Other Than Alcohol, and there's a questions in, can a non-alcoholic pill or drug addict become an AA member? No. Can such a person be brought as a visitor to an open AA meeting for help and inspiration? Yes. If so, should these non-alcoholic pill or drug users be led to believe they have become AA members? No. Can a pill or drug taker who also has a genuine alcoholic history become an AA member? Yes. I think that answers our singleness of purpose. And I don't think we talk about our singleness of purpose because we are outvoted by a lot of people that are more empathetic to the pill problem in this world, but that's a whole cauldron of debate. I think that you need to sit quietly and listen to and prayerfully. But thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of this Fellowship of the Spirit 11 Steps series, we'd like to extend a warm appreciation to David for sharing his experience, strength, and hope with